Hello and welcome to the Comedy Studio Podcast, the
Only
podcast.
The only podcast.
The only podcast. Once again, perfect sync. We should be in the Olympics if they hadn't canceled them.
Can we call ourselves In Sync?
We can call ourselves In Sync. I know Rosa here, one of our special guests, one of three special guests today, was more of a Backstreet Boys fan, but we have not introduced you yet. I guess I did say your name, so I can understand the confusion. I'm your host, Danny Hatch. Your other host is Eli Levy. Welcome to the show, Eli.
Hello. It's good to be in this Zoom room.
Isn't it? Who doesn't love a good Zoom room? Spending all my time in Zoom rooms these days.
Do you think this is what they meant by the room in the movie The Room?
Yeah, it's tearing me apart.
It's a good quote.
It's the best quote. I haven't seen the movie. I saw.
Really?
Your own girlfriend is very disappointed in you for not seeing that very disappointing movie.
I'm not here yet. I haven't been introduced.
Have you? One of our special guests is Rosa, of course, my landlord.
Hi.
Have you seen The Room? I don't think you've seen it.
Haven't I seen it with Brie Larson?
No, that's Room.
Oh.
It's probably a much better movie than
Oscar-winning movie.
The Room.
Where she's trapped in a room by a kidnapper with her son.
I bet they
wondered how that was like a Zoom room.
Yeah.
But I just let it go because we're all going through a really traumatic event right now.
The Room is the Oh Highmark movie.
I bet they would have called Room The Room if they were allowed to, but somebody already took the.
Yep, that's how copyrights work. So I don't think you've seen that. We've seen the movie where they make the movie.
Yeah,
You
I've
saw
also
The
seen
Disaster Artist, but not the
clips.
original.
Yeah, we've seen The Disaster Artist and we've seen clips, but haven't seen the whole movie. Eli, I've got to ask. We are at the height of summer. Typically a bountiful time for bowel movements.
Are there more?
Have we moved up?
Wait, well,
Have we
this is
moved
a
back
question
to
for
the book?
Rosa. Are there more bowel movements in the summer than there are in the winter?
I honestly don't think that's the case.
But they feel so much more, voluptuous and alive when I have them in the summer. I can really squeeze out the curves and feel them. What a way to start the podcast. But I gotta ask, Eli, are we back to the Mark Maron book?
I'm back. I'm back to the book. I'm back to the book.
Hey, look at you.
And it's taken a turn. I've gone from I finished the chapter on parenting to the next chapter from parenting goes into addiction. And so far, no one in that chapter is addicted to parenting, which is just too bad.
That's a shame. It would be nice to have, for the first story in the addiction chapter, be someone who's addicted to being a parent. So there could be a little bridge to, get you through the hard times. Well, I'm very proud to hear you're back to the book, and I'm glad you're enjoying it and learning about addiction. I know Mark Maron famously was addicted to being funny, and he
Sad.
still is.
And sad.
That was his
And
major addiction.
And cocaine.
You have not been introduced yet.
But cocaine
So
is
not
called
talking
funny
to your
powder.
mic. Our other special guest today, you could use Rick Jenkins. Have we introduced Rose yet? This is a very loose feel today, but Rose is here. She's my landlord. We did introduce her. And our second special guest of three, he's the owner and operator of Rick's Ties and other bondage equipment. Please welcome to the show, Rick Jenkins.
There's another revenue stream I have to think of.
Comedy Studio brand bondage equipment. We just slap our logo on ball gags, on masks,
some wrist
zippers,
cuffs.
whips,
You're
chains.
not really wearing a mask unless you're wearing one of our masks.
And it's over your eyes as well. Rick, you would be a great. Don't take this the wrong way.
Well, good start.
You have the look of a guy who runs a sex shop.
And
know?
what would be the right way to take that?
As a compliment. You
Okay.
are helping to liberate men and women and all the other genders all across our great
I
nation.
think I know what our local business recommendation is going to be today.
Yes.
Yeah. Hubba Hubba, a really cool little store, has been in the neighborhood, the Cambridge neighborhood, for decades and decades. And unfortunately, the sole proprietor, really wonderful woman, passed away last year. So there's a little bit of question as to what's going to happen to the store. But yeah, it was really like a little mom and pop thing. You'd come in
I
all
love it.
shy and scared, and
Yep.
she would be like, "So are these nipple clamps for you or your partner?" And you're like, "Oh, geez." Yeah, it was really, really sweet.
I love Hubba Hubba. I was
Yeah.
sad when I thought they had closed down because the original location in Central moved down Mass Ave towards Harvard, and I
Mhm.
didn't know that that was what was happening, and so I was a little devastated when I thought it was going to be gone forever. But it's not.
Yeah, it had a number of locations. That the door store, the place that sells
Oh,
that restaurant, that was the original Hubba Hubba.
oh,
Yeah,
So
I've
there's
walked
been
by
many
that
times
place
that we were like,
many
oh, I hope they
times.
don't go away.
yeah.
Have they said anything?
No, now they're on. Is it Elliott Street?
Yeah,
There's
it's
a-
real
Mhm.
close to the cellar. It's
Yeah.
like right
Yeah,
off
yeah, I
Mass
remember
Ave,
walking by it all
like
the
on the
time.
corner. Yeah,
Yeah, so
there's
it's
like
just one door
Yeah,
behind.
just
the
walking
restaurant.
by it. I just remember walking by it. I've certainly never got into it.
I walk through it on my way to the cellar. Every
like
time
that,
I go to the cellar from the Hong Kong, I always come with a new little treat for myself.
Yeah, no, it's similar to the cellar in that you have to go downstairs. So I'm
Mhm.
guessing the rent was a lot cheaper being, off Mass Ave and downstairs.
yeah,
Which for a sex shop probably is desired.
yeah.
Maybe like you said, people come in shy. They might be more at ease
Hmm.
underground.
Side street. Yeah.
Yeah, feels exclusive. Well, this is a lot of Boston Cambridge geography for an episode where Rose and I have moved out of Boston for the moment.
I'm not your landlord anymore.
No, now we share a landlord.
You
Yeah.
could have just put a title card under you that says "in Boston," and no one would have known the difference.
But look, it's all different behind me now. We Rosa got called back to work. She of course is Dr. Fauci's advisor at the NIH. And she's being called back to the lab. And
I'm
we're doing online shows, so we loaded up the cat in the car and we took her to an 8 hours away apartment.
Yeah, that works out well.
To be clear, I know that's a cute joke, me being Fauci's
Yes,
advisor, but it is the case that I work in the building directly next to his.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my colleagues last week texted me that he had shared an elevator ride with Dr. Fauci on campus, which means there's a chance this could happen to me.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether I should start carrying around a headshot of Tony for
Well,
him to sign in the
mm.
event that I bump into him on campus.
Well, why carry around a headshot when you could carry around a baseball for him to sign?
That's a very good idea.
So, are you?
I hope
Is
you
it your
wouldn't
job to
take it the
teach him
wrong
how to
way.
pitch?
So I assume you saw it. Rick, did you see Dr. Fauci throw out the first pitch at the Nationals game?
Yes, I did. I saw the highlights.
I see, Rick. You are sporting a classic kitchen towel.
It's a good joke.
Yes, well, I'm sitting out on my fire escape, and the
Yes.
sun is very warm, so
I can imagine.
I thought it was really cute
My
that he just threw out such a terrible pitch.
Yes. Yeah. Guy is 80. He's fucking saving America as best as he can. And he's a doctor. He's not supposed to be good at throwing baseball pitches. That said, it was a really bad one.
It was quite
it's
wide.
really, really fascinating to see how the right is trying to demonize him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
What are they
mean-
doing? I haven't seen anything.
that dynamic really, really interesting.
I also find it funny that Trump was so jealous they had invited Fauci to throw out the pitch
Mhm.
that he lied and said that the Yankees had invited him to throw out a pitch, which
Yes.
they apparently did not.
And then he said, actually, I'm too busy to do it,
It-
fighting COVID.
Yeah, but he said that
Literally
before it was
fighting it. He's
public.
punching
He
the
did-
air.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
punching the air.
Anyhow.
Yeah, man, this country's fucked. If fucking Dr. Fauci's getting death threats, I don't
yeah,
know
his
what
whole
to say.
family. He's got all this boosted security.
What?
Well, I have a lot of friends who are on the right side there, and the whole older stuff about Fauci that hasn't even come out yet, and all that sort of stuff. The one I'll give them
What
is
is that?
they were
Yeah,
passing
go
around a meme, a picture of him at the ball game, wearing his mask without the nose being covered.
Yeah, that'll get him. That'll show
So
that.
that was
fuck.
one like, okay, yeah, you should have had it up.
Yeah, he's in a packed arena stadium. What do they call him? Ball field.
Ball
No,
bags.
socially distant.
Thousands of cheering fans.
You're like,
and,
we got him. This is it. This picture is his damning evidence. He's
Smoking
going
guns.
down.
So Rick, your dipshit right wing friends are saying that there are these dark secrets about Fauci that have yet to
Mhm.
come out. Do they give any intimation of what they are?
Is it intimacy with
Apparently,
animals or?
yeah. Apparently, there's a lot of there's belief that he owns stock in a lot of the vaccine companies. There's ties that when he was with the Obama administration, that he was the one approving the Chinese scientist, the U.S. scientists working with the Chinese. There's just all sorts of you know
That
reaching for threads to say, oh, there's something there.
Well, with the first one, wouldn't it make sense that if you believe in vaccines, that you would buy stock to invest
I
think
actually
in
think
the
he can.
vaccines?
I
And
actually that's
I
a
believe
conflict
he
of
does.
interest, and he wouldn't. I mean, being in science,
I don't know. Would he be able to?
Yeah, he's
own
not a
stock in
senator.
no,
Merck?
there are rules about it. Like
Huh.
if at least you have to disclose that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So if I were to publish a paper and I had any conflict of interest, if the research topic was at all related to something that I could financially benefit from, that's something you have to disclose. Now, sure, there are scandals. Like Harvard has had some scandals with beer companies and research recently about like beer being good for you
And it
and
is.
and it has a past with
All right, I think I actually need to disclose something
sugar
to all of
industry.
you
There's
right
been some
now.
bad shit, but
Okay.
I bought $10 worth of stock in AMC
Wait, when?
just now. Well,
Just now?
yeah,
Why?
yesterday because it's $5 a stock right now.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but when movies come back, it'll be worth more.
Are they ever going to come back, though?
It was $5 a pop. I bought 2
before.
shares. Who cares?
That's true. It's not like you're sure. Hey, I wish you the best of luck. And that is a rival theater, though. So I'm thank you for disclosing that.
Luckily, it's
Hey,
not a
Rosa,
rival
do you know
podcast.
anything- Do you know anything about that scientist, the Harvard scientist, who apparently a bunch of them get a lot of money from the Chinese to work on stuff? He was over at I forget where.
so I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's up on charges because he apparently didn't disclose it properly.
Yeah, so I don't know about that particular scandal, but
Okay.
like I recently had to do my annual training, and
Mhm.
there's all this stuff about if you're funded by some other country, yeah, there's a procedure for disclosing that kind of information, especially since I work for the government. Now that I'm at the NIH, it's especially strict because as they warn us, China wants to like steal all our research and all this shit. I think, whatever. I won't
Yeah, and they're
hear my
actively hacking.
they're actively hacking, but it's also the U.S. really hams it up. What's the word? They like
Hams.
Hams it up sounds like an American term, yeah. It sounds like we just
You're
add.
You're right. I don't get why we're laughing.
they just try to create a real strong like anti-China. We can't
Yes.
trust China kind of
Ham it up.
fear mongering.
Hams it up.
They ham it up.
When in
Hey,
doubt,
man,
ham it up.
I don't know anything about this kind of stuff, and I feel like we're about to get arrested if we keep talking about it.
Yeah. All I'm saying is there are procedures in place, and when people don't follow through on them and they get found out, it is a problem. Dr. Fauci would not be in that position. He's been for decades in this position for our national government, and that kind of you can't keep that kind of shit secret.
He owns stock. Well, he actually did release his stock disclosure, and he does own stock in the best baseball bloopers ever VHS series of tapes.
He's winning. He's winning funniest home videos of America.
He said, "I just have a feeling this thing's about to fucking blow up." These best baseball bloopers. So we are in Bethesda, Maryland now. We are across the street from Dr. Fauci. He's waving at us, and we're waving right back.
He's trying to
He
throw
says,
baseballs through your window, but he keeps missing.
Yes. No, we're dropping on the cars. It's a mess out there. We left yesterday around 1 p.m., which was probably the hottest day yet of the summer in the Cambridge area. We had to bring our 12-year-old cat with us, who's very set in her
12
ways.
years old. Wow.
Yes.
And she's never really had a car ride.
No. We bought
That
her
would have probably explained the anxiety. Yeah.
we bought her a big kennel.
Yep.
So she'd have some room. It had a little clip-on water bowl. But man, we put her in that car.
First,
And
okay,
she-
we turned the AC on.
Yes, we
We
cooled the car down.
as much as we could. It was still hot.
Yes, it was hot.
Danny came out with the carrier, put her in the car, and instant.
She immediately
attack.
starts screaming and hissing and like hyperventilating and like
Her-
panting.
Her tongue made a shape I have
Yeah,
never
she
seen.
looked like a
before.
scary dragon, and it
Yeah,
was very
it was
upsetting. And it
really
was like
scary.
she was having a real hard time. So we freaked out. We bought like 3 bags of ice and like
Bags
packed
of
her
ice.
crate in with ice. And then we
bought
bought
a fan,
we
a
bought
clip-on fan.
a couple fans because I went in first. We went to Rite Aid to buy fans, and I panicked and I just bought some shitty handheld fans because I was like, my daughter's dying.
Next, you're gonna tell me you bought a luxury apartment for this cat.
Yeah.
But we decided
We calmed her
we'd
down
calm
after
her
about a
down.
half hour. But it was very scary.
Danny thought she was
I
dying.
thought she was gonna die. I thought
He
my daughter was going to die.
genuinely-
I thought I was going to be the one who had killed my daughter, Diana, who's a cat.
Had you thought
Two
about
questions.
mouth-to-mouth resuscitation at all? I think that froze.
I had not.
She's got very sharp teeth.
Rick, was that one of your two questions?
No.
Okay, hit me.
Question one
Hit us.
is: do you think maybe there was like a greenhouse effect in her carrier, so it was actually even hotter or more uncomfortable? And question two is: does a fan really work on like dogs and cats? Wouldn't their fur keep it from the the sweat evaporating?
Yeah, so it is the case that cats do not like sweat to cool down, and they don't even pant. Dogs do pant to cool down. Cats are supposed to drink cold water to cool down. So we knew we had to get the air around her cold. And I was worried we were having a little greenhouse effect in the carrier, which is why we packed ice both around it, and then we put half a bag inside the carrier under a towel so she could like lay on it or next to it. And the fan helped circulate that cool air, like just create, I think,
An ice
we were
hurricane.
panicking. It was a panic
Yeah,
situation.
we were
to be
freaking out.
perfectly
I
honest.
didn't handle myself well.
Who was driving?
Maybe I was
Rosa was
driving.
driving.
We pulled up. We didn't drive until she had calmed down because it was chaos, and Danny was really upset, and he kept being like, "Is she gonna die?" And then I didn't know, but
But you're a doctor.
but I had to,
Be the
feign
voice of reason.
calm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I apologize for not being able to be as, usually I'm a big manly rock who's just got nerves of steel. And I apologize that I was Clark Kent in that moment instead of Superman.
But the thing that really surprised me is I anticipated that she would scream the whole drive, or at least the first 2 hours. And that's based on our prior experience where if we put her in the carrier, like Danny had to leave the apartment once because he thought that he was going to have carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah, there was I was worried there was a gas leak in our apartment back in November.
And so he had to take her in the carrier upstairs to the neighbor's apartment, and she wailed 2 hours straight. So I thought this was going to be a drive where we had a wailing cat. And it turns out she's a superstar. Once we got through the panic attack, once she calmed down, we got everything cool.
Yep, she started
She
singing
succumbed.
along to the radio with us. She was playing I Spy, the license plate game. She's so good at the license plate game. No,
She
she
really
just
chilled out.
Yeah, she chilled out. It was a big relief. It allowed us to make the drive more smooth. We passed through a lot of states. We passed through Connecticut and New York and New Jersey and Delaware. We went to rest stops in, I forget which states, but both times we went to rest stops and went inside to use the bathroom or get something. I didn't see everyone wearing a mask.
There was a lot of mixed mask.
I mean, I've seen
Despite
mixed stuff here in Boston
the
too.
fact that over the highways there were all these signs that were like masks required in service areas, face coverings required. People just ignore that shit.
So
Not everybody.
hopefully not a harbinger of what is to come, because I think we are technically in the South now.
What, Maryland? No.
Isn't Maryland below the line? It's like right below the line.
Mason-Dixon, yeah, I think we're right below the line.
Or are we right above the line?
I honestly don't remember.
Maryland was Confederate?
You mean
I don't
cool?
remember. Whoa.
Hey, I'm Tennessee. I have to say that.
It is no,
Although-
Eli. You don't have to anymore.
Let me. Tennessee
can
was
go
the
to
first.
NASCAR without
Tennessee was
saying
the
it.
first to come back, so we were the first to say "whoopsie daisy" when we
Saw which
when
way
that
the
whole
ball's going. Oh,
conflict.
there she
Hey, look,
is.
there she is.
She's alive.
We
Oh, there.
Tennessee is
Fine.
proudly the first to back down and say
Okay.
we made a whoopsie.
There's some short whoopsie.
Made a lot of whoopsies. 1 second.
Well, so maybe we're not.
You went to the grocery store last night.
No,
How
just-
was that?
That was fine, but there were like 6. I mean, it was like 10 p.m.
Right.
There were like 6 other people. They were all wearing masks. I'm sure it'll be fine. But we, we are leaving us. We left a state that's got it under control for the most part.
So under control that
Oh.
Massachusetts, starting August 1st, if we want to go back, even as Mass residents, if we want to return, we're required to either quarantine for 14 days or present a negative COVID test before 14 days is up. And if we want to avoid quarantine altogether before we arrive, we have to have a negative test within 72 hours prior to our arrival.
Is this the travel ban going into effect?
It's a travel advisory.
Travel advisory.
Yeah.
Such draconian language.
You have to submit a
Bam.
travel form before you travel with all your information. And if you don't submit that form, it is a $500 a day fine. And people think that they can just drive into the state and not have to worry about it, but there are cameras over all the highways.
The
Because
Easy
that's how
Pass
they do
cameras.
the tolls now. It's
So
all,
easy.
There's no toll people. It's all license plate by photo or Easy Pass. So
Yeah, all the toll people moved under the bridge,
Where we belong.
like troll people.
like troll people. Anyways. So we fled a place that
Yeah.
has shit under control and that is now going to be hard to return
We went
to.
to a place that the jury's still out. But Rick, you said, when we said how great Massachusetts is doing, is it not?
No, as of yesterday, the numbers are going back up, and there's
Oh no.
the governor is threatening, hey, get it together, or we could go back.
There was that booze cruise in Boston Harbor.
There was
Wait,
a
what?
booze cruise in Boston Harbor.
Did you see this
No,
photograph?
no.
No.
Catch
Oh
me
my
up. Catch
God.
me up on this. What's going
Yeah, the
on?
mayor shut them down.
Yeah, cease and desist. So there was one of those, the booze cruises.
Sure, I know a booze cruise.
And there's a photograph, and it's just like, yes, they're outside, but they're densely packed like sardines outside.
All wearing masks, I'm sure.
No,
What?
they're drinking, they're gabbing, they're yelling and laughing, and they were sent to cease and desist. But I saw today there was an outbreak in the Bay State Hospital, 36 new COVID cases of like medical staff. Anyways, there are some Massachusetts problems.
There goes our boat show idea.
Were you gonna do a boat show?
No.
Comedy cruise.
We were gonna have one boat has the audience on it, and another separate boat has the comics on it, and you have to make sure that both boats match each other's speed perfectly.
Yeah.
It's
We'll have the comics write their jokes down on a cannonball and then launch it into the other boat.
Yeah, Brett will be in the tech booth. I'll be next to the captain being like, line it up. Forward.
Oh, that's fun.
But it turns out that would be a bad idea.
Oh, probably, but it's fun to think about. Well, damn. I guess you think those Saugus Pizza comedy shows are to blame? What is it? At the Giggles tent? You think that could be spawning?
I would
some
say that
cases?
pizza in general, as a concept, is to blame for the whole is to blame for the whole thing.
There's a lot more out there. Worcester is doing every week. Providence has Fridays.
I saw there's a lot of stuff going
Lot
on
of
in
shows
like
out there, yeah.
Providence. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of outdoor shows. Some seem better than others, but some don't seem
Sure.
so great. But
Oh,
there
just
are
the
some
fact
that
that
seem
they-
fun.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't like that they say that instead of telling jokes, the comics just have to go up to each audience member and kiss them. That seems unsafe. on
I
stage.
can't wait to be able to spit into other
But
people's
they're
mouths again.
outside.
That's true. They are outside. What was that, Eli?
I just said I can't wait to spit into other people's mouths again. I can't wait.
Oh
for that
yeah.
I can't wait for that to be acceptable.
Of all the things the government has taken away from me,
That's
flavored
been the
Juul
worst.
pods, being able to own a gun because I have a medical marijuana card, definitely not being able to spit in people's mouths for the past 6 months gets
Wait.
my goat the most.
Wait, you're not allowed to own a gun if you have a medical marijuana card?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
You can't be too cool, Rosa.
We don't need someone
That would
this
literally
chill to own a
if
gun.
you had a medical marijuana card and a gun, you would literally be too cool for school.
I mean, I don't. Maybe it's. I don't know the law that well. That's what I have heard. That it shows up in your background test and has gotten people disqualified. But like, I don't give a shit. I will never own a gun. I might,
Yeah, it's still
have to
illegal.
black market buy one, but I'll never be on record as owning one.
I'll rent one.
Yeah, I'll rent a gun. No, I'll never touch a gun. Not a gun.
I'll
guy.
lease a gun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be a gun's landlord.
Imagine having to be the
let
repo
it
guy that has to
live in
come
my
back
pocket.
and like forcibly take back your gun because you couldn't pay it.
Yeah. What were you saying, Rick?
I was just wondering if, because marijuana is so illegal federally, so I wonder if your gun permit would have to go through the feds, which would mean that your marijuana card would be flagged as something illegal.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Isn't the gun?
But guns would be state,
I feel
think.
like I was gonna say, aren't guns? It's all states, right? It's like
Yeah.
I think your permits are issued by the state.
There's no federal background test.
Your medical.
I mean,
check?
I think your background check is technically federal because it accesses literally all records of you, whether
Yeah.
they're state or national. So,
And federal law would supersede state law.
but I work at a comedy club, not a forensics background place, so I have no idea.
Rick, would you like a medical marijuana card? Because I did have one in your name, made up.
And it was posting
Right.
to Twitter.
Still have never tried, and that's looking like more and more of a bad decision.
To have never tried? Why is that?
It's never
Yeah.
too late.
Well, I mean, now
Yeah,
it's
it's never too late.
Yeah,
You're like
Yeah.
70. That's not the end of the world.
yeah, get in there.
You want you?
Think about that.
You-
Starting the second chapter of your life, it's going to be a very quick chapter.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we're getting to the chapter part of the podcast.
Um,
Yeah.
Do you really regret not trying marijuana? I was gonna say medical, but
Mhm.
any.
I'll get back to you on that.
Smoke a little weed,
Sure.
think about it.
take your time. We don't want your boss to hear this. You could get fired.
Don't
No,
try
if you
buy any
want to,
guns.
Rick, whenever I'm back in the area,
Yeah, if you're ever
when
here.
things, when things are safe, I'll be back. It's once we open again, I'll be back.
Do you have plans?
Do I have what?
Do you have plans for coming back to Boston?
Who has plans
Yeah,
in the age of
whenever-
COVID?
Whenever like we can do things in person again.
Do you
Like,
have
okay to
schemes?
fly.
Any schemes? No plans, but you might have schemes.
I
We're
don't.
gonna sneak him in with
Wait.
a hubcap.
Oh,
of a-
scheme!
of
I
an
thought he
airplane.
said steams. Yes, yeah, it'll be like a Toy Story movie. I'm gonna. Yep, exactly. I'm gonna in a pet carrier.
What if
It's called
we?
Diana's Revenge.
What if when
Put
you
me
get
right
back,
in
we
the-
do a fun little game where we all four of us try and buy a gun, and we see who successfully gets one. And we record
bet
all
it'll
of it
be
on
Rick.
video. We bring a camera guy with us.
I don't
Although
know.
Rick,
I
you-
believe prescription medication comes
You're right.
up on the check. So that's
you're right. Yeah.
This will be a fun
So
game. I'm
if
not sure if any of us will be able to get a gun.
No.
Eli,
if
have you
you're
ever been
treated for
to a
depression.
shrink? Eli, have you
Uh,
ever been to a therapist? Is there any?
I've been
mental
to a
illness record?
psychiatrist when I was a kid because I got prescribed Ritalin when I was in second grade, so for ADHD medication.
Yeah.
And another psychiatrist in high school for the just more powerful Ritalin.
Here's a joke, street joke. What did the Riddler, famous Batman
The
villain?
Ritalin.
What did the Riddler get prescribed as a child to help with his attention deficit disorder? What did the Riddler get prescribed as a child to help with his attention deficit disorder?
Low dose of Adderall.
Adderall.
Adderall is the answer. What was that, Rick?
He said
No,
low
nothing.
dose Adderall.
Okay.
So let's say,
Hit me,
because
bro.
we're assuming now it looks like things won't be open for at least till the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking of yourself as a Maryland resident?
Yeah, if I have to come back for something,
Mhm.
I will, and I'll bake it around that 2-week quarantine. But
We got a nice
There's
gun
no-
waiting for you here.
there's no
We
Just
need
on
you
my
to come pick
doorstep
it up.
with the bow on it. Welcome back, Danny. Yeah, I guess I consider myself a Maryland resident now.
We brought his winter jacket just in case.
That's
Ah.
true.
We didn't bring like a lot of winter clothes, but we did bring.
It's
a
more of
winter
a fall jacket.
Fall. He brought his fall jacket.
So I could see myself being here through the fall. I mean, it's like August basically.
Yeah, I
So-
thought it was a trip. I didn't realize it was a move.
Well, I told you it was a move, Rick.
We packed that car to the gills.
There are so
When I
many
asked you to
cats packed into
Beverly
that
Hills
car.
Billy style.
Yeah. Well, whatever. But
I think also it totally depends. Like if everything shuts down again, if I don't have to work again, and it looks
mean,
like
yeah,
it's
if it
going to
gets
be
bad here.
months, then we may come back to Cambridge.
Yeah.
But we have I think this isn't the next chapter of
Mhm.
the COVID year, and that's going to bring opportunities for some new habits, some new projects potentially. Like we can do a little reset, and you know,
Yeah, I'm gonna reread Infinite Jest.
that's the first thing on the list.
Her dad left it here.
What
Yeah.
hobbies do you have?
Rollerblading and skateboarding.
Oh, is your ankle doing better? You finally gonna get back
Oh,
out
these
there?
aren't my hobbies.
Oh,
No,
yeah, those are my hobbies.
my ankle's not good enough to rollerblade or skateboard. Although what we did buy was a mount to turn your bike into a stationary bike.
Hmm.
So I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
start doing that,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah, and we have a projector here, so we can project like
widescreen porno outdoors.
or you can cycle to widescreen porno. Whatever will make your exercise routine feel good.
Did we consider advertising our show on Pornhub?
Not yet.
I mean,
We are going to advertise it on a couple Earwolf podcasts next month. So if those go well, I think Pornhub is the next destination for us. I mean, I bet a lot of our target market, or target audience rather, frequents the site.
When you advertise on Pornhub, do
Mhm.
you choose the categories where
I don't know, but
go up? Like, how does that work?
I bet you could.
most.
I wonder if more. Yeah, I mean, because like
if you
different
could, that would be
podcasts cost
awesome.
more money to advertise on. So guys, Brian Kiley, our third guest of the day, he's entered the waiting room.
Okay, good.
Now, guy's a big deal. Not gonna lie. He's written for Conan. He's performed stand-up on Conan. All sorts of shit he's done in his life. Who's not a little bit intimidated to have this guy on the show, right? It's a big deal. So, Rick, I'm gonna need you to do the honors and just pretend to be Brian Kiley for the rest of the interview because you're already bald, and I think that way I can handle it. No, Rick, will you do me the honor of introducing our guest and taking the lead on the conversation?
Is he?
Should I leave this to the professionals here?
Oh, I suppose.
Dr.
Yeah,
Fauci's gonna let Brian Kiley in.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you for
It
joining
was
us.
nice to catch up.
Bye, Rosa. It's good seeing you.
All right, now that I have two mics,
Double
I can feel
mic.
confident enough to talk to this guy. But Rick, I'm gonna press admit, and you're gonna team up, okay?
Okay.
With
Fuse
Big Eye.
into one.
Our
All right.
next guest, ladies and gentlemen, is an old friend and one of the best comedians in the entire country. The man's been writing for Conan forever. He's been on the Letterman show. He's released CDs. And I was just talking with a couple of people, and we pretty much acknowledge the best one-liner writer in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Brian Kiley.
Yeah, stretch it, Rick. He's still connecting to audio. This is the art of introducing guests on Zoom. Okay?
I just
Looks like you did.
Those are
instinctually
all
started
his credits.
clapping.
Hey, Bri.
Whoa!
Hey,
I
Brian.
was one.
Whoa,
I thought
space.
it was 10:30. I mean 1:30 your time. Did I screw up?
No, you're right on
No,
time.
1:30
not at all. We
Was this
we
the-
had to we had to decide who was going to introduce you before we let you in the room, and Rick won.
Nice.
Welcome to our show, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us.
Am I
Hello,
too
Brian.
dark?
No, you're
No.
fine. I mean, space is
You
pretty
haven't
dark,
even
so it's
made a joke yet,
understandable.
practically.
Nice. How are you guys?
I'm good. How is Dallas and how is
Good.
space? I see your shirt says Conan Dallas on it.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. It was an interesting place for a Bostonian to be.
Were they welcoming?
Well, it's funny that Conan has some similarities with JFK, that they were both born in Brookline, and they both went to Harvard. And I don't know if Dallas is the place you want to hang out if you have those.
Just people
Was
staring
there
at
any
you.
word like, hey, maybe we should stay away from this topic while we're there?
It's I don't remember. It was a few years ago, but I do remember there was a local coffee shop that we would go and get coffee and sit and write there. And the owner was very nice. And in fact, I left my jacket there and I went back and he had it for me one time. But he had a gun in a holster. Like, it's an unusual thing for me to see a barista packing a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he
Packing
stirring
heat
the
and
coffee
serving
with it?
hot coffee.
Well, I did make sure to tip him pretty well, I have to say.
You're
Yeah.
like, my coffee's a little cold. Oh, let me heat that up for you.
So Brian, you I hope I'm not the one breaking this news to you, but you are the head monologue writer for the Conan show.
Well, okay.
What is your
You took
title?
it pretty well.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
There were 6 of us with it when Conan took over the Tonight Show. They beefed up the monologue stuff because the Tonight Show had this history of having a big monologue. So I was in charge. I was the one who would meet with them and we would discuss what we were going to talk about that day and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. So now it's just down to Laurie Kilmartin and me. There's no.
There can be only one.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Okay.
it's really. I mean, people keep. Oh yeah, that. It's like there's just 2 of us, and there's no special privileges or anything like that.
So okay, I thought you're the one who writes the jokes that comes out of Conan's head. Was that
I
not?
I write half of the jokes that he decides not to do.
Now Conan is doing his show in quarantine, and even before all this happened, he had switched to a more interview format show.
Yes.
How have these 2 influenced or changed the monologue writing for Conan industry?
Well, he was still when we were doing live shows in front of an audience. He was still doing a monologue. So most of the time. So it didn't change it too much. Now that he's home, a lot of times he's not doing a monologue. I mean, actually, now that he's actually back in a theater now, but he hasn't really been going. Hey, part of the problem is a lot of times they would tape the show the day before because of, especially when he was at home. When he was at home, they would tape it the day before because there was a lot more logistical problems into getting the show onto the air. So they needed that day in advance kind of thing. So Monday's show, a lot of times we'd shoot it on Friday. It's very hard these days to do a monologue Friday that holds until Monday. Things are changing so rapidly. And then also we had such heavy topics with Black Lives Matter and the death rates with COVID and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So and then also there's not other things going on in the world because everyone's in quarantine. So it's probably so he's done very few monologues under these circumstances. So it makes it a little tricky. I've been I still pitch stuff to other parts of the show, but it's definitely this is a tough time for a monologue.
Yeah. Do you still turn in jokes each day? I mean, is it like?
I do, although sometimes I'm like, okay, is there any point to this? And then I was even kind of shifting to making jokes about being in the theater with nobody there and talking about how long his hair's gotten and things like that, as opposed to today Trump said such and such. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and even switching to just sort of, and even when he was home too, just sort of general sort of quarantine jokes about, I'm stuck in my house, but today, I went from the living room to the kitchen. That was pretty good, or whatever the thing was. It was more, it was not really about the news per se.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not as many. Well, now I guess you really can't do the, a guy in Maine found his wedding ring after 12 years.
Yeah.
Human interest or novelty stuff.
Yeah, there's very little of that. Nobody, it's such a bizarre time. There's absolutely, so little is happening that other than bad stuff, even the mundane things aren't happening, so the reporters are not working on those stories. You know what I mean? There's so many things that are part of that. Yeah.
Well, how are you doing in quarantine in your life? How's the
You know what?
lockdown been treating you?
I'm actually built for quarantine. I have to.
You're in your
admit.
element.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with. I've been doing writing, and I'm writing for me, and I'm reading a lot of books in the afternoon. It's like to sit in the afternoon and read a book. It's like, oh my God, and I go in my garage and work out, and I have a stationary bike, so I'll watch. They'll show old games on the NFL Network, and so it's like, hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ready
yeah.
Are you
for
alone,
retirement.
or do you have a family also, or do you have a family quarantining with you as well, or are you by your lonesome?
No, no. It's funny. My daughter actually had COVID.
Oh,
Um,
Oh,
I'm
she
sorry.
goes to Boston College. She just actually just finished. Um, she came home with it in March. What happened was there was some kids she goes to school with who were in Italy for the semester, and they came back and they weren't supposed to go on campus, and they went on campus. So my daughter and her roommates and her friends, all her friend group, they all got it. So she came home with it, and she just we have like a little room over the garage, like a Fonzie, Greg Brady room, that she just went and stayed there, and we would eat with her outside, socially distanced. So we
Hmm.
just kept our distance, and for like a month, she was really secluded, and so she had tested positive, but then after a month, she got tested again and tested negative. So it was a little. She didn't have a severe case. She was sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day and achy and stuff like that, but she never had a high fever. It was never like we got to rush to the hospital or something, you know. But that was a little bit stressful. So she's all better. Um,
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thanks. My son actually
You're welcome.
has been home. He's come home a little off and on a little bit.
Okay.
So he works at a law firm and he's able to work from home. Everyone's just working on the computer. Um, so yeah, so it's been good for my wife and me to see them and that kind of thing.
My parents were
Do you
like,
notice
we can
old
wait.
family dynamics starting to come back into play? Like, are your grown children fighting again like they used to? I don't know your kids. I don't know if they fought or not. Being very
It's funny.
assumptive.
They get along. I think what I've noticed is I think I'm getting on my daughter's nerves. I think, and I think certain jokes, it's like or bits or whatever. It's like not this again, and it's like look,
Oh, is that what's getting on her nerves, or the jokes?
oh yeah, yeah. And it's like, look, this is a signature piece of mine. So come on.
This is my
Can you give
best
us
work.
an example of a bit your daughter hates?
Well, so just read this book last week by D.H. Lawrence, and my daughter was an English major, and she's getting her master's in English. And I asked her if she read any D.H. Lawrence, and she's like, "No, you asked me that yesterday." So now I ask her every day.
Okay.
It
To
sounds
me,
like
it's funny.
Yes.
However, to her, it's less funny.
it sounds like the joke
Yes.
is annoying her.
It is annoying her, and also she knows that she knows I'm intentionally annoying her, which I don't know.
There's not many plays against that, unfortunately, in the playbook.
Well, sometimes things are comedy. There's an interesting thing where something's funny and then it stops being funny. Then you keep going and then it becomes funny again, and then you keep going and it stops being funny, and then you keep going and it becomes funny again. It's this interesting sort of wave. Although she has not caught the wave,
She is washed ashore.
so she's yet to jump in there. But that's just one example, I guess.
What Lawrence did you read? Some of that's pretty racy to be talking with your daughter about.
Well, and I'm reading Sons and Lovers right now, and I just finished. Why can't I think of the name of it? I'm kind of rereading my old novels. Why am I blanking?
Sons and Lovers is the one I read.
It's Sons and Lovers. There's Women in Love. That's not that one. It's not Lady Chatterley's Lover. Aaron's Rod. Aaron's Rod.
Oh.
That's what I read. Yeah.
These are all extremely erotic sounding. Aaron's Rod. There were two separate books of
Yeah,
love in
believe
the
me,
title.
I want my money back. That was not
No,
the erotic
it's
novel that I was hoping for.
Just for your review on Amazon, is this book was not nearly as sexy as I was hoping it would be.
Yes,
Too
yeah.
much Rod.
One
not
star.
enough tick.
Lady Chatterley's Lover is pretty dirty, but this was, he
Yeah, it was
disappointed.
actually banned. Now I know you mostly as a history buff, reading history. Is there a philosophy between going back to fiction?
You know what? This is kind of funny. I tend to like My son last year, my son for Father's Day gave me this giant Frederick Douglass book that won the Pulitzer. So, and I'd already read a giant Frederick Douglass book last year, but I was like, so I read this new one. But I think sometimes when you read it, and like an 800-page history book, I like to cleanse the palate with a novel that's, you know, just a little lighter or whatever.
Do you read any comedy or the how-to books or?
I'll occasionally read a self-help book. Not as I don't as many as people think I should. It's like, listen, you should be solely reading self-help books around the clock.
It's not a good sign when everyone's like, I have so many self-help books I need to recommend to you.
But yeah, you know, it's funny. I had the library app on my phone, and I would read sometimes. You know, sometimes you're stuck. I mean, not in the quarantine, but when you're out in the world, there are times you're waiting for, you know, your coffee to come up or your whatever it is you're waiting the doctor's office. I always have a book on my phone, and the library app, which I got excited about. The books are not. They're not my kind of books for the most part. There's a lot of, and I accidentally read one where because I clicked, but I thought it was tricky. Like I ended up clicking the one above and not the one below, and whatever. So I end up reading this. I think it was a book on tape, like an audiobook, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of these where it was like this mystery, but then it turned out there was a twin, and the twin was bad, and then the guy died, and then the chapter ends with they died, and then it starts the next chapter. But wait, he's still breathing. It's like, no, he died.
End of book.
You know, I mean, it was actually good for me to read sort of like a popular thing just to sort of see what's out there. But I was so enraged all through it, where it's like, you know, my two pet peeves are the evil twin and when there's an amnesia thing. It's like, okay.
Oh yeah. Amnesia's always like
forgetting you had a twin.
I don't need to write a backstory if the main character forgot it.
But I've also you're in traffic. You're in traffic a lot normally before this, and I find with books on tape, like audiobooks, like when I would have a gig in Maine and drive home to Boston, and it's midnight in the middle, and there's no one on the road, I would listen to a book on tape, and it was fantastic. But when you're driving in traffic and in city driving, you have to you try not to be killed. You're trying to pay attention, and then you're like, wait, what happened in the book? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do find self-help books you can listen to because it's almost like having a conversation.
Yeah.
You don't need to follow the plot, or there's no symbolism, or
You can
whatever.
roll your eyes.
Yeah.
You can pretend that you didn't hear certain parts because you were in traffic. So if the book was like, stop drinking, you might be like, what? And there's a car.
They're not talking about me.
Yeah. Your
So
first
this
book was a
helped out.
novel. Is the new one a novel as well?
That I'm working on?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm trying to do that. And I finished a draft today, so I'm feeling good about that.
What kind of genre do you work in? Hard-boiled detective noir?
Hard boiled.
No, it's always I think
The first book was a lot darker than you would think, Danny.
yes, I think it's I would say like a dark coming of age story.
Okay.
Yes, is that fair to say, Rick?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's some childhood stuff that I put a dark spin on and make it look like it's not really me, but it is.
Okay. And then you've had amnesia and forgot about it. And now the book is you
Exactly.
And then your twin wrote it.
reckoning.
Yeah,
Yes. Brian Kiley. Rick, how do you and Brian know each other? Give us the secret history. And Brian, feel free to jump in. I'm just a spectator.
A million gigs together.
Yeah,
Ah.
it goes all the way back to Catch a Rising Star. Brian was the regular Monday night host, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and Wendy. And I was never really in at Catch. Robin, the booker, was wild about me, so I would hang out there a little bit. But I was mostly at the Connection, and Brian was mostly at Catch.
Yeah,
So,
but we did gigs for the
some
Connection
gigs, yeah.
together. And you ended up hosting a lot at Faneuil Hall, right?
Not Faneuil Hall. No. That's by that time Blumenreich had come in.
Oh, I thought you were doing.
I was mostly Barclay.
Oh, okay. Okay, but right, but what were you doing? Were you hosting for Barclay at Faneuil Hall or just at the old Charles Playhouse?
Pretty much just the Playhouse. Yeah.
Okay. I remember watching the Bills Giants Super Bowl.
Mm. Yes.
Right? At the comedy Charles Playhouse there.
Yeah, that's the first time I met your wife.
And I was, just as being a Boston fan, I just reflexively root against New York teams. So I wasn't cheering as hard as you were, but you and I were on the same side. And yes, and I remember we bonded where we both felt. I didn't feel as low as you, but we both were bummed out when you missed that field goal.
Well, I remember. I believe it was that game. What I remembered most was that upstairs in the what's now Blue Man Group Theater was Funny Gay Males. It was a stand-up show of 3 gay men, one of whom I knew, Bob Smith. But it was so funny because you had all these gay men, like 500, supporting them and being at the show, but sneaking down to check the score and not wanting anyone to know.
That's so fun.
Don't anyone know, but who's?
I was doing a show there one night at just a regular Saturday show in the Charles Playhouse, and there was a show. It's a one-woman show. I think it was called Shirley Valentine. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
So there's a one-woman show going on in the theater upstairs at the same time, and I do my set, and unbeknownst to me, Ray Flynn, who was the mayor of Boston, his wife had dragged him to the Shirley Valentine show, and he snuck down into the comedy room, and he was in the back watching my set, and then his wife was like, "Hey, get back here," and he had to go back. So I didn't see him at all, and I didn't even know he was there, but I came off, and they were like, "Ray Flynn was here, and he was in the back. He really liked your Kennedy jokes." So that was kind of cool, but I didn't get to meet him.
Now you were one of the first we know to do the Tonight Show, right?
Yeah, it's so funny because
How'd you get that? Who books that?
Where can I send a tape?
Who books that?
What happened? It's so funny because when early on in my career, you start out dirty. I mean, I shouldn't say that for everybody, but it's almost like you want to get laughs, and the easiest way to get laughs initially is, of course, is to be dirty. And then I had this audition. They had an audition for college comedians, and I was in college, and I didn't get it. And I realized, what am I working dirty for? I want to go on the Tonight Show. So I spent years trying to write just to do the Johnny Carson show. And so I didn't make it. By the time I got on Leno like a year after Johnny had left. But what happened was, I guess I think I had gone to LA to do like Evening at the Improv or something like that. And somehow Jimmy Brogan saw me. Jimmy Brogan was booking the comedians at the time. And he saw me have a really good set. And he went through my jokes with me. And I remember I had 24 jokes, and he liked 17 of them. So he's like, "You've got about 3/4 of a set." So I said, "Okay." So I went back home, and it took me forever to get, because in those days you had to hire somebody to come with a video camera and tape you, and invariably something bad would happen.
Yeah.
One time I was doing, so I was doing a benefit, and I remember I had to wear a suit, and everybody was dressed up, and it was just in this little restaurant in Dedham, but there was a guy named Rex Traylor who was there, who had been, he was kind of like the Mr. Rogers of Boston, although he was like a more manly Mr. He had
like a cowboy.
Yes, he had a
cowboy
cowboy. He was a cowboy that had a kids show for like 30 years or whatever it was. And he was a legend, and he was a great guy. And he, he would do these stunts where like they would do these outside stunts where he's standing on a horse and then jumping on another horse. Like he did these incredible things. Like it was like I shouldn't even say Mr. Rogers because he
Yeah.
was a very sweet guy, but he was like this very manly guy at the same time. So he was hosting this benefit, and it was just one of these things like everything was going perfect. The crowd was great, everything was great, and about 2/3 of the way through my set, and it's being taped, and I'm like, I'm gonna send this to the Tonight Show and all this stuff, and out of the kitchen come 6 chefs with tall, pointy, those tall chef hats.
Yeah.
And they're all each one is holding a flaming cake, and they parade around. They parade in front of the stage and around the room, and then back into the kitchen because like desserts be coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just being so incensed, where it's like, well, thanks a lot, you assholes. I can't send this tape, I can't send this tape out. And then I remember I hired. It was a Sunday. It was a Sunday night on late. A lot of times, you had to hire somebody on an off night, but you also don't want nobody in the crowd. So I hired somebody on a Sunday night before Labor Day because those shows, everyone had Labor Day off, so it would be packed. So I hired the guy like a month beforehand or whatever, and I'm waiting. The show's supposed to start, and the guy's not there yet, and he calls me out. He calls the club, and they're like, "Oh, he's on the phone." And he's like, "Oh, I got stuck on the Cape. I can't make it, but I'll do it next week." It's like, well, next Sunday there's going to be 7 people here. Do you know what I mean? Here it's packed, and it was like, it just took me forever to get a tape, but I finally did, and I sent it to Brogan, and I come home from a gig, and I just play my answering machine. And he's like, this is Jimmy Brogan for the Tonight Show. I watched your set, and let's book a spot.
Just
And
like
it was
that.
And it was low key. I was like, wait, what was that? And I remember I had to replay it like 5 times to make sure that I wasn't misinterpreting it or something. But it was so casual about it. Let's book a spot. And I was so excited. I remember I called my older brother, and he was watching the hockey game, and he's like, "Oh, that's great, whatever." And then he's like, "Is Marty McSorley tagging people tonight, or what?" He just immediately started about the hockey game. I wasn't watching, so whatever. But that was pretty exciting, though.
How many times did you end up doing Leno?
Well, I did it 4 times, and
Okay.
Brogan booked me the first 2 times, and then he stepped down, and then this guy named David Lee booked me a couple times, and it's so interesting where, and this happens in clubs too. You have a certain person who books a club, and they book you all the time, and then they move on or whatever.
Mhm.
And then the new person comes in, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know you," and you're like, "Wait, what? I've been working this, Rick, you can do that."
Yeah.
Like I've been working this club for 10 years or whatever,
Well, you became pretty much the go-to guy for Letterman.
Well, so I kind of lucked out because, after David Lee stepped down, they brought in these 2 niggas who didn't care for me. And you kind of like, oh, okay. And they were just sort of dismissive, and you're like, wait, that's it? I'm out? Do you know what I mean? And I was crushed. And then I had sent Letterman something, and I didn't hear back from them. And then like a year later, I'm at work, and it's like 1 in the afternoon, and Eddie Brill, who I've known for years, you know him for years, he calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, this is a weird question, but can you do the show today?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." He goes, I'll call you back." So he calls me back like a half an hour later, and he goes, "Okay, you're on. Dave is sick. Bruce, we need an extra guest. Bruce Willis was supposed to be the first guest. Now he's hosting."
Wow.
So, can you be over at 4:00 or whatever? And whatever. So he hangs up.
It's one of my favorite lines.
I turn and I tell the guy I'm working with, I said, they just called and asked me to do Letterman. They said, Dave is sick. Bruce Willis is hosting. And then Eddie Brill calls right back then and goes, don't tell anyone that Dave is sick.
Whatever
Well,
you
it's too
do,
late now.
make
The cat's
sure.
out of the bag. Yeah. So I always kept a suit in my office because at Conan in those days, when we were in New York, sometimes a guest wouldn't show up, or a guest would get sick, or they'd be stuck, like their plane would late, or something like that. And I was the emergency guy if that happened.
Huh.
Not if the first guest couldn't make it, but if a second or third guest, although
Sure.
sometimes if the first guest couldn't make it, they bump up the second guest, and then at the end of the show they'd need me to do 5 minutes or whatever. So I always kept a suit there. So I just took my suit and got dressed and went over, and I didn't have time to be nervous, and I had a good night's sleep the night before because I didn't know it was going to be happening.
Yeah.
And I also don't know how many people they asked before me. I'm sure they had comics that were lined up to do the show, but they were out on the road somewhere or whatever.
Yeah. Do you remember your first line?
Oh yes,
One of my favorite jokes.
it was something like, "It's always been my dream to do the Bruce Willis show," or something
Yeah.
like that.
You just sort of, it was such a great take. You just sort of stood at, I like you're taking it all in and just like, this is a big night for me. I've always dreamed of someday doing the Bruce Willis show.
How was Bruce Willis as a host? Was he a good host?
Well, yeah, I mean, he did a good job. It's very hard to they couldn't have him do all the comedy that Dave would have
Oh, I
done.
know.
And
Mhm.
Dave is so amazing, and I think that Dave would take something and then bring it back, and you know what I mean, make something into a running gag, and also just sort of find something that's happening that night and pounce on it and build on it. And it's so you can't expect somebody who's not a stand-up to just be riffing like that and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he
So
found out about it that day too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. How gracious of him to take that on. Like,
So he's a charismatic guy, and everyone, the crowd knows him. But
Mhm.
but at the same time, he it's not like he's David Letterman,
Mhm.
You done panel, or has it always been sets?
I did panel a little bit on on Leno. It was funny. One time, it's just so crazy. Like one time they go, they asked me to prepare panel, and then they go, "Oh, don't worry about it. We're not gonna have time for that." And then right before I go on, they go, "We're gonna need 2 minutes of panel." It's like, you specifically told me that wasn't gonna happen or whatever.
Mhm.
And I just told that Seinfeld story about when I opened for Seinfeld or whatever. So that it was kind of like that sort of, especially paneling. It's a little tricky for me sometimes because you're making up stuff. Do you know what I mean? These jokes there's a thin line of truth to them, but they're still jokes. And then when they're actually talking to you, it's almost like, well, wait, am I supposed to still be part of this world I created, or am I supposed to be talking as me or whatever? So, yeah. So I just I just told that Seinfeld story, and with Dave, I never once sat on the couch. So I did it 7 times, and each time he came over and shook my hand, and that was like, you get 1 second with him when the thing ends, and he'd say like, "How's Conan doing?" And I'd say whatever, and it would be the freak thing.
He's been kind of down lately, yeah.
Or something, yeah. But people always act like you hang out. It's like, no, what you saw on TV, that was that was the extent of our.
Yeah. What's Dave like?
He really was very nice to me, and also I get people that I'm sort of in awe of. It's hard for me to converse with them anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm always like, it's him, and
Yeah, wow, you're really you.
yeah. It's so surreal talking to them, and I do think for me, that's the biggest thing of when you do those shows. You want to just look around and go, oh, there's the band, and there's Paul Schaefer, and there's Dave over there, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, focus and do your set, and not.
Yeah. Did you play to the audience or the camera? Or
really
to Dave?
I really played to the camera, although Dave would be behind you to the left, and I do remember working my set, and I didn't have a transition from one thing, like halfway through my set. I was switching gears, and I didn't have I had a very lame, contrived transition. And I remember when I made that segment, which was so bad, I could hear Dave was the only one. Dave laughing like, "What?" And I wanted to turn around and go, "I didn't have a way to get from." Yeah, I was mortified.
Yeah.
So you've been, sort of entrenched in the world of late night comedy for a while. You were involved in the Tonight Show when Conan was hosting it.
Sure.
We're now 11 years removed from that whole debacle. Is the industry still sort of have the tensions simmered from that whole event?
Oh, yeah, I don't think that it's. I feel bad for Conan in the sense that sometimes a guest will come on and bring it up, and it's like, no, we're not thinking about it. We're not
Oh
dwelling.
yeah, very rude for anyone to bring it up.
It's like, oh, he won't let that go. It's like, no, he's not. Like, he immediately changed the subject. He didn't bring it up. We're not. We're not angry. It's like, TBS has been great. We can do whatever we want. We're not getting network notes, and it's just a more fun show. I don't think anybody's. I think we've all moved on. But
Good.
Yeah.
I was just curious, and I apologize for bringing it up.
No, that's okay.
Did you get to go on that tour with them to keep talking about it?
I didn't get to go on the tour, but I did write for the tour, and they would call me and go, "Hey, we're in Chicago. You get some Chicago jokes," or and that was nice. I mean, writing Boston jokes was fun, and I did write some stuff for it, but. Yeah, I mean, it also changed from initially we got together and he was going to do U2000s and some bits that we did on the show and all this kind of stuff. And then it became all these songs. It became mostly the songs. So a lot of the stuff that's like, I wrote all this stuff. He picked a bunch of it. I went away. I think it was like for like Easter weekend. I went away with my family, and then I came back on Monday, and all my stuff had been taken out. And it was like, wait, what happened?
There wasn't even a pandemic going on then.
Yeah, I leave the room for 5 minutes, and everything I've done has been eliminated. So, but he kind of would tailor the jokes to the city that he was in or whatever.
Yeah, do you still feel a little? Is there still some emotion when you watch the show and go like, "Oh, I got in one, or I didn't get in any, or they did"?
I have to admit, like if I get the goose egg, if I don't get anything on, it maybe doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but it still bothers me. You're still like, oh, didn't get anything on. Like you like to be contributing and be part of the show, and yeah, it's still it's like if you're a baseball player and you go hitless, I'm sure you come home and you're like, oh, I was over 3 today. You do want to be part of it and score.
Rick, you should. You ever thought about going on late night TV?
Yeah, I should do that. Yeah.
It sounds really easy. They just call you all casually and say, "Do the show if you want."
Rick, do you have anything to wear?
Yeah, I keep a suit in the office at all times. Like, you're doing a Johnny Carson retrospective, for God's sake. I've got a suit.
We need somebody who's got a suit stat. Do you know anybody?
What if that's the only requirement?
We are nearing the end of the show. We like to close the show. And thank you for joining us, Brian. Taking time out of your life.
Turns out, guys,
anytime.
I'm open. I don't.
Do you want to host it? Because I'm sick next week. We like to end the show with everyone going around the horn giving a comedy recommendation, something they've enjoyed in the realm of comedy recently, and a recommendation of a local business in your area that might be struggling under circumstances, the current circumstances. Usually we have Rick kick these off, so why mess with the tradition? Rick, take it away.
Okay. There was a really cool piece in the New York Times. I was going to mention this to Brian. Just yesterday, or 2 days ago, Zinoman, the critic there, wrote an article I'm recommending called "As a Teenager, I Hated Johnny Carson, Then Came the Pandemic." And it's a really interesting piece where he wrote the biography of Letterman. So he's always been a Letterman guy, and saying during the pandemic he finds himself leaning away from late night television and more towards like the consistency of Carson's show, where what used to seem like hokey and artificial now feels more consistent and soothing. So I thought that was really interesting. And Somervello is right near where our comedy club is. Some of our friends work there. They do bicycle repair and maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
which is just really awesome because I just got a bike. So they are sending me up.
Yeah, there's another version of
Nice.
that company called Alston Velo in Alston.
Yeah.
It's the
I
same.
didn't
It's the same
realize
company,
were-
so they change the first part depending on what area they're in. So the same
You got a
company's in
bike,
Alston.
Rick.
Yeah, they're really nice people.
Nice.
That's very exciting. You're gonna wear a helmet, I hope.
Yeah, well, it's a very, very expensive bike that was left to me. So it's like a racing bike that's way over my head. So we're going to be taking
sure.
it slowly.
Oh, good.
Biking's fun.
How about you, Brian? Do you have a comedy recommendation?
Yeah,
and
there's
or
a
local
show,
business?
and I always get the name wrong. It's like something that happens in the shadows or something.
What
like
we
that.
do
we
in the
do in the
shadows.
What we do in the shadows.
Yes, very good.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, they nominated all over the place.
Where I really enjoyed that. I thought all the actors are really funny.
Mm-hmm.
It was really clever. I'm wondering how long a show like that can go. Do you know what I mean? With
Yeah.
it's such a concept show, but yeah, I hate everything, and I was actually laughing, and yeah, I binge watched the whole thing. So
Oh wow.
I
It's
regret
based
that.
on a movie. If you haven't seen that yet,
I haven't seen the movie. Is the
Um,
movie good?
It is. It's really funny.
Nice.
It's a Taika Waititi movie.
Nice.
So
And the place I'll recommend
Guys
is
got
there's
quite-
a comedy
yes.
club here in Burbank called Flappers,
Yeah.
and it's a restaurant too, and so they can't do shows these days. Although we do Zoom shows,
Mhm.
but they can't do live shows. But you can get food there, and you order takeout and go pick up. So I always try to recommend that place so that it keeps going, and people
Yeah.
have good food, and I don't want the place to go under.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. I like to recommend the movie The Walk with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He plays Philippe Petit, the guy who walked between the two towers in
Oh,
the 70s.
Oh, that's a great movie.
His French accent is hilarious in that movie. So that's my comedy recommendation. And it is a good movie, but it's not really a comedy. And I'm in Maryland now, so I'd like to recommend the local grocery chain, Harris Teeter. Big
Nice.
fan of Harris Teeter grocery stores. All right, Eli,
Maryland,
take
man.
us home.
So my comedy recommendation is a 3-part thing. The first thing is you watch the movie Snowpiercer by Bong Joon-ho. The second part is you watch the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And then there's a YouTube video that proposes that Snowpiercer is actually a sequel to the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
A dark sequel, if that is the
Wow.
case.
It's actually a pretty compelling comparison.
Wow.
It's supposed that like the main the Wilford in Snowpiercer is Charlie.
Is that Chris Evans?
Yeah, that's the Chris Evans movie with the.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities when you watch the YouTube video.
Right. That's interesting.
Oh, and then my
and
business.
Veruca Salt is a mass murderer in both, right?
Oh yeah. She's the lady with the microphone in Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
And then my business recommendation is a pizzeria near me in Alston, Massachusetts called La Mama's. They
Sounds
make
delicious.
literally everything. If you flip through their menu, like, oh, they have pizza. Oh, they have calamari. Oh, they have pasta. Oh, they have an entire Mexican menu. Oh, they have an entire Colombian menu. Oh, they
Wow.
have fried chicken. Oh, it just goes
Always
on
the
and on
mark
and
of
on
a-
and on
of
and
a
on.
good restaurant.
And it's all
What's the
delicious.
name of it again?
La Mama's.
La Mama's.
It's fantastic. I got like a whole like pizza-sized chicken quesadilla, and then I got toasted ravioli and calamari on the side. It's
Wow,
so
you're
good.
Nice.
like a
They make
World's Fair.
They make really good pupusas. They make good empanadas, and
Wow.
they have like really good subs too. They literally make everything. So that's my
Okay, how about
recommendation.
soup.
They do have soups. Yeah.
Wow.
Do they deliver to California?
Check Uber Eats. That's where I get them.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. It's
I had
what,
so much
what a
fun.
treat this has been.
Are you
Where
kidding?
can our listeners? Sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask where our listeners could find you if they wanted to
They can go on
learn
Twitter.
more or watch more.
They can go on Twitter at Kiley Noodles.
Cool.
And they could go to my website, although I haven't updated it lately. But yeah, they could just go to briankiley.com.
Great. We'll go to briankiley.com and at Kiley Noodles on Twitter. Thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate your time, and everyone, stay safe.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
See you later.